But before we get to that, just a little bit about myself, Ryan Lafazan. I am a cloud modernization manager for the FinOps and strategy team. And we have Lian here, who is the manager of the team.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. So I'm the senior manager of the FinOps and the strategy team for at Verizon in the GTS organization. That's a global technology solution. It's more like IT version of the organization. And our team is really providing the FinOps as a service to the GTS, responsible for cloud spend and really focusing on the efficiency and also prioritizing cloud spend towards modernization. We also manage the cloud service provider management and really focus on the forward-looking strategy and the service adoptions. And collectively, we drive values for our stakeholder, both internally and externally.
Thank you. Okay, so here we're just going to show the walk from the early days, 5 or 6 years ago, when Verizon was building out the infrastructure in the cloud. We had a few core teams, security and networking, and there was a cloud center of excellence and some semblance of a cloud program management office. But at the time, there wasn't much in terms of connectivity or any overall structure to it. This just shows you the walk at the bottom from when we started. We actually started in 2016, but 2017 is when the first few workloads were actually put into AWS to where we are today, which is actually 2022. As we progressed, some additional teams started to come about. We had a cloud governance, dedicated cloud architecture teams, but they were still scattered about with not much overall structure to it. So here we're in a FinOps-like model, and I actually say that we're in a JOG state, although there is no official FinOps JOG state, but fast walk, not quite there yet. Operating in a FinOps-like model, but we weren't using the term FinOps in our organization. A lot of what we were doing was FinOps-like, but not practicing FinOps as a discipline. So to here we are today. This is the core of our FinOps team, right? FinOps and strategy is the team that I sit in the middle, but really it's comprised of governance and the cloud architecture team. Those three teams together working collaboratively is really the keys to our success. So I wouldn't say it is a hub and spoke model, but the FinOps team consists of these three core teams working collaboratively together. Also, we have a close working relationship with security. Security is a very strong presence in our cloud. Verizon has a very strong security posture. And our networking team. And finally, last but not least, is our finance team. I would say our collaboration with finance came in more recently, but is also really key to have that relationship with finance, in the shift from cost, from capital to expense, and being closely integrated with finance in terms of our budgeting and our forecasting is really key. And then finally, our cloud service provider engagement. We have a team that's dedicated to working with the different cloud providers. So all this together is really what encompasses our FinOps total strategy, if you will. And the collaboration between all these teams is really what's key and what's brought us to, I would say, a run-like state today. Without that collaboration and really building that into the culture, at least for us, we wouldn't be where we are today. This is our engagement model. So at Verizon, and like many other large companies, there are many different business units. And there are several hundred applications or workloads in the cloud that sit within these different business units or verticals. Consumer is one example. So the way we structured it and how we engage with these teams is, I think it's fairly simple in nature, but it's very effective. So we have someone from the FinOps team that partners with our solution or cloud architect team, and we have someone from that team right here, Kirby. So Kirby and I work together, and we work with a point of contact or points of contacts from these portfolios. And they are our liaisons who help us then work with and collaborate with the application teams that sit in those different business units. So that enables us, our team, to leverage FinOps at scale across the several hundred applications, teams, or workloads that are in the cloud. So we have a weekly cloud forum. This has been running for over 5, maybe 6 years. It's essentially our community of practice. It has grown and matured over the years. This brings together everyone in the cloud community, all the different teams, from governance and security, architecture, networking, as well as the application teams and the folks down, running these workloads, developers, and what have you. They're all invited to, and several hundred people do attend this call. There's various different ways that folks can get involved and sign up for and attend the meetings and get information from past meetings. We have a knowledge repository that has captured all the meetings from at least, I think, 2017 or so. The meetings are recorded, the agendas are all captured there. So there's just various different ways and formats that folks can connect with the cloud FinOps community at large. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So as a centralized cloud FinOps team for our GTS, we really implement and develop and implement the inform, optimize operating the phases of those FinOps operating model for GTS, and partnering with various teams and internal or external. And really the planning, operating, engaging, and involving, those are really the 4 our FinOps governance, more like a functional pillars or engagement stream that we use and we have. We allocated the budget at the portfolio levels, and based on their run rate, their growth, their demand, and all other building blocks. And once the budgets are set, we do a monthly forecast to our finance and also our leadership, our portfolios, cloud principles, and just to show that how the quarter is going to be and how the year is going to go to be. And also we do a quarterly forward-looking budget tune-up, really based on their allocations and their actuals and their demands and anything that there is any new demands coming, and based on that we recalibrate their budget and see if there is any favorability or any pressures there that we need to watch, and what are the factors are causing that. So that is, we communicate to them every month, but we do the budget tune-up every quarter. And we, like Ryan said, we have those cloud service provider engagement specialists that work with our providers very closely, because Verizon is multi-cloud. So we work with them very closely and focus on the forward-looking and what are the strategies and service enablement and adoption, and to really to drive values for everybody. And optimization is really ongoing effort. We have efficiency experts partnering with internal teams, external service providers, really try to look for ways to optimize and eliminate waste and make sure that we maximize the value of the dollar we spend in the cloud, and try to automate whatever the governance control as much as possible. And really cost is everybody's responsibility, so we need to engage teams. And our team's responsibility is providing the cost transparency to our community, that we have a scorecard down to every level, starting from the application team all the way to our finance and our leadership teams. And for application team, for every application, we do show their spend and how efficiently they run in the cloud. And also, are there any opportunity for them to optimize? And for finance and our leadership team, we give them the views, and so they can see by portfolio how are they doing against their budget and against their efficiency target. And our team does work with a lot of other teams and collaborate and to set up the standardized processes and also the best practice and define the FinOps framework. And the cloud is always evolving. So for our cloud governance or FinOps, and also evolving. So in the past, we do a lot of migrations, so lift and shift. Now we are pretty much done on that phase. So for any new workloads, we want them to be as efficient as possible in the configuration side, architecture-wise. So we set up really the process to vet those and to see if their architecture fit, are they budget fit, where is the funding going to come from, and once it's all set, then we bring in to let them to onboard and set the budget for them to run with it. And we are scale up with our FinOps practice, and right now we are doing the service for our GTS. We wanted to go beyond the GTS, and also we're talking about multi-cloud. So we wanted to have the FinOps really the practice in all the cloud service provider that we're working with. And modernize the workloads, that's very important, and to take up the new service that has a cost-effective, that is the goal, and also expanded our industry engagement. So Ryan's going to talk about some of our automated governance controls.
Right, and I'm sure you've heard the word automate many times throughout today's talks, but we do try and automate from a governance perspective as much as we can so folks can focus on what's important. So some of the two really key aspects of our governance framework is a concept called rehydration and right sizing, or managed right sizing. And the rehydration is a process where the teams have to kind of re-up on a scheduled basis throughout the year. It allows the teams to leverage the latest patches and updates, agent updates, et cetera, so that they're all running on the same, golden images, as we would call them. So it provides a unified security posture, and they don't need to maintain this themselves. They could leverage what's there. Manage right sizing. So this is a concept that will analyze the data, the utilization, and based on the utilization and certain thresholds that we've set based on best practices for site utilization, recommendations are presented, and these underutilized instances that are identified will either be downsized, terminated, or upgraded, or right typed, if you will, or terminated if they're no longer being used or idle. So that is done on also a scheduled basis throughout the year, and there's a series of communications that goes out to the teams before this happens. They do have the option or the opportunity to get an exception if need be, because some teams have reasons for running certain instance types that can't be right typed or downsized or changed for whatever reason. And the benefits of this managed right sizing, again, it's through automation. They could focus on what they need to, and the managed right sizing policy will do some of that legwork for them. So we have many governance policies in place. This is just an example of a couple of policies that I would say provide the most bang for the buck. Low risk, high, high benefit, right? EBS, unattached volumes, inactive RDS, orphan or, idle or zombie assets, whatever you want to call them. These are policies, especially the EBS and inactive RDS, that will look at volumes that are not being utilized, or orphaned EBS volumes as an example, and terminate them after a period of time. Again, teams are notified before this happens, and in the instance of the inactive RDS on the bottom, I believe a snapshot is taken prior to their termination, in case they need to be reverted. We have lifecycle policies as well on S3s that will move objects that don't have a policy to intelligent tier at a lower cost. And we have a retention policy for all our snapshots, different types of snapshots, RDS, EBS, and many other different snapshot types. They each have different retention periods attached to them, and after those retention periods are reached, then they are terminated. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, so next I'm going to talk about something called enhanced governance control or enhanced cost governance control. This is something that we're rolling out now. I guess you could say it's in a pilot state. So the idea here is this is to help. One of the things it does is to contain and control costs. It's not right sizing, it's not efficiency, it's to help control costs and bring accountability. So on the cost control side, what it does is there's the very premise that all applications have budgets, right? Our team establishes a budget, and I'm not going to get into that whole process, but every application has a budget that's been approved, and a monthly and an annual budget. So given that budget, then we monitor their actual spend, their actual and projected spend. And based on certain thresholds, if a team is projected to overspend their budget, for an example, by a certain amount, we will send them an email notification or a notification to let them know they're on track to spend X dollars over their budget. Or they have already spent X dollars over their budget. If they reach the second threshold, either projected spend or actual spend, then comes a Jenkins job that will block their ability to launch instances in non-prod. But it only blocks their ability to launch instances in non-prod, new instances, I should say. So whatever's already running would not be touched. So this is it's a somewhat proactive, somewhat reactive way to control costs. It's proactive when we're looking at the projected spend. It's reactive if they've gone over their budget and we want to contain those costs, so we'll stop their ability to launch any new instances. This is in pilot. We're actually rolling it out next month. Now we're going through the notifications phase. But we have to balance this with running the business. We don't want to bring these workloads down. So it's a careful balance, and we're going to test this out over a period of time. But also, what this does is it brings accountability to these application teams. Not all these teams are acutely aware of, and they will be, that they have budgets, right? So by doing this, they need to be more aware of what their spend is, more aware of the impact of what they do on a daily basis by launching new instances, what have you, what that impact is. So it brings accountability to them, and it gets us talking, us as in these application teams, our FinOps, governance, and architecture teams, gets us talking, which is also what we want, right? Because this is still, for these application teams, some of them recently migrated from on-prem to the cloud. So the concept of cost and the impact that, the fact that they could spin workloads up at any given time and the cost impacts that they incur is still new. So this will help bring and drive those conversations. Let's see how we've been time. All right. And lastly, this is just a view of what that cost control or enhanced governance control dashboard would look like. So on this graphic here, the green line will show what the application's actual spend is. And the green dotted line is the projected spend. So in this example, this application went slightly over budget at the end of that month, and this month they're projected to be a little bit under budget, right? So this graphic will tie directly into the thresholds that we have set and whether or not email notifications go out or even a non-prod block scenario is initiated. This dashboard is accessible by anyone, our team, the admins and the application teams themselves, so they can go in and view this at any time. So it's a kind of a push from the notification perspective, but a self-serve tool as well. And that is it. So we will be at a few chalk talks tomorrow. If you want to attend these tonight, Lian and I have these fancy Verizon shirts. If you have any questions or want to pick our brains about how our FinOps team evolved over the past several years, happy to talk about it with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan and Liam, very much for that. We do have time for some questions. Actually, you guys did pretty good. Ooh, geez. Whoa, they just popped up there. Hold on. Have time for questions for a little bit. Let me check time. Yeah, we got 8 minutes. Okay, wait, they got you first. We'll get you.
Thank you. So I'm very curious about if you're blocking people from spinning up resources in their non-prod environment based on their budget, what process are you using to set the budgets so that they're actually correct and you're not, running into this every month because you didn't allocate enough budget?
We could probably talk for a while about how that works, but we have a process in place that we've kind of built over the course of the past 2 or 3 years to project spend and establish budgets. It's difficult by the very nature of the cloud. You can't, it's variable by nature. So we're flexible, right? We have an exception process in place so that if our projected spend for that particular application doesn't match their workload, we have an exception process in place. Again, we don't want to, we want to balance managing costs with running the business, right? As Lian mentioned, we do have a quarterly budget true-up exercise as well. So every quarter we will look at the budget we set out. So we have a annual baseline budget, but we kind of true it up every quarter just by the nature of the cloud so that we get it right.
Yeah, we do have the building blocks set up to set up the budget. So we look at their current run rate based on, say, last 7 days or months, right, and their run rate. And we do have a cloud modernization manager assigned to our portfolio, work with them very closely. So during the planning session, we do know that whether this application going to be having any organic growth. Do they have any new demand they are coming in? Are there any new demand has been approved? So we know that that's all going to be accounted for. And if the application, there's up and down, there supports retail season because we're Verizon, right? So we have retail season. So do they have retail season, those kind of factors factored in? And do they need to do load testing or anything to prepare for that? So those things we count for and then become their budget. And then we constantly chew up their budget, so.
Okay, oops. Follow, yeah. We'll right back to you.
So the true up, does it sounds like it might be disconnected from the actual financial budget that's associated, that finance is giving you a cost envelope, but it doesn't seem to be related to that if you are just randomly truing up based on current spend. So.
We do have the allocation because our allocation is at the IT level. And then we do set up the budget at the portfolio level. So we have the allocation, and then we set up more a show back to the portfolio and say, hey, this is what your budget to use for. So the allocation will not change, but then when we talk about the budget true-up, it's more each application, and then what are the spending going to be, and that's your allocation.
So you're trying to in aggregate, make sure it doesn't go above.
Still
the
has to
budget,
stay
but
within
you're
the
just
budget.
shuffling money around generally,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
And then this way give our finance a good view, like every quarter or something, then they know that whether the allocation will have any pressure at the end of the year. Do they need to allocate more money, or do we have favorability that they can use for some other VPs or anything to support others? So our finance team actually really appreciates that. So every month we share it with them, but every quarter we also tune up the budget. So they know how much can be spent in the cloud.
Okay, got a couple more questions here.
So I noticed in the beginning you said FinOps and strategy was kind of are you helping to prepare, or do you, what on the strategy side do you do, or is that just kind of the overall name of the group? I was just curious if you're like helping prepare a cloud strategy, or kind of like thinking more on that angle of it.
Well, I mean, I guess the strategy part is kind of driving what our FinOps team, how it evolves. Actually, I haven't actually thought about that, but I mean, the strategy part is, our FinOps as a service, and what's going to be our focus coming, for the next couple of months, next year. So that's the strategy part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also like say whether our workloads need to be modernized, that what type of instance we're going to do, like what service we're going to be focused on that really going to drive the value that the spend in the cloud. So all those things that we collaborate and partner with our a solution architecture team, our governance team, security team. So together we set up the cloud strategy, and we are under a cloud engineering team. So everybody, all the teams are work together, and we drive that. So.
Did you still have a question? Or did it get answered?
Somewhat answered. All right, so you kind of cleared it up before, but it almost sounded like your finance team and your FinOps practice was one and the same, but it sounds like you had, you're closest to the orbit of the business units to manage the budget, but ultimately the accountability for that budget still rests with the finance team. Is that accurate?
Really, we are responsible for the cloud spend, and they just give us allocation and say, because during the planning session, we will see, hey, this is what we look that for next year, this is how much we needed to support our GTS cloud workloads. And then they look at our numbers and demand, and then they give us an allocation for the year. And then we manage all those and make sure that we don't overspend. But we report to them and say, hey, this is your allocation and this is what we are looking to spend. So they know that whether there is a shortage for this allocation or there is a favorable that they can take away. Okay. We don't want them to take away anything, but yeah.
So I'll go the other direction. Mm-hmm. The point of context you have with the business units, are they extension of your FinOps, or are they just?
No, they are more like our customers. They are portfolios, business units. They have their workloads running in the cloud.
Okay, so yeah. Do you function as their governance?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, we do.
All right, folks, and that is no, you guys, it's a wrap. And in order to stay time with everything else, I know Ashley had a question. So just remember, you can get a hold of them out in the hall, talk to them later. Tomorrow at Speakeasy, they have a couple of times, and they're talking. They're going to be at Speakeasy tonight, so it's great. So Lian and Ryan from Verizon, big round of applause for the small but mighty group that's here. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
JR here from the FinOps Foundation. Thank you for watching. Please go to FinOps.org if you want to get plugged into this amazing community. And of course, hit subscribe right here on YouTube to get all the future content. Hope to see you soon.